Whether it's the Jazz, Utes, Cougars, or Aggies, these guys have got you covered.
Time to eat, fellas.
You're locked on to Jake Scott and Ben Anderson.
1, 2, 3, move it.
On 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Jake and Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. A very happy New Year's Eve to everybody out there. Utes getting ready to take on Nebraska coming up in about 2.5 hours. You'll be able to hear that game right here on the station, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Let's welcome in our next guest. You can find him on Twitter at Evan Bland, OWH. Covers Nebraska football for the Omaha World-Herald. What's going on, Evan?
Hey, good morning. Just hanging out in Alita Stadium. Pretty great venue. Looking forward to a good game.
Yeah, it is a very cool venue, and it's going to be well stocked, I'd imagine, with Utah fans. It's such a close drive. How well do you think Nebraska fans traditionally travel, and how much will they travel to this game specifically?
I would expect a pretty decent Nebraska crowd. You know, they had a history of traveling really well. When they played at UCLA earlier this year, they had about 25,000 people that came out and showed up, and we're at the Rose Bowl. And I know Nebraska for this particular game sold out its allotted 5,000 tickets within, I think it was about 48 hours, and plenty more picked up tickets on the secondary market, and just being around the Strip and kind of the downtown Las Vegas area. There's definitely been a decent Nebraska presence here too. So it's kind of unfortunate that we won't get a gauge fully like what the fan base presence is for both sides, since, you know, it's a lot of red, but we know what the dominant color scheme is going to be here today. And I would expect it to be fairly neutral. I know Utah's closer, but my sense is that this game maybe registers a little bit stronger for Nebraska fans, just in terms of the novelty of the trip, the fact that they haven't been to a lot of bowl games, and that this is one of their better seasons in the last decade. So I think it'll be pretty even. Yeah,
Evan, can you give us kind of a sense of the story of this year for Nebraska? Obviously a hot start, 5-1. Dylan Raiola, gets hurt, and things fall apart a little bit late. But what were kind of the stories that were weaved into that, and how fans feel about this year?
Yeah, there was a lot of anticipation for Matt Rule's third season, just because that was his breakout moments when he was at Temple, when he was at Baylor, and it kind of felt like things were in place with Dylan Raiola in his second year, and some of the moves that they had made in the portal that maybe they could take off. The schedule was a piece I know that a lot of fans and media looked at and said, man, this is an opportunity where you look at around the Big Ten, and Nebraska didn't play Ohio State or Oregon or Indiana, and they had their toughest games, USC and Michigan, in Lincoln. And, you know, unfortunately for Nebraska, they lost a pair of close games to those teams. They probably their most disappointing outcome was a lopsided loss at Minnesota. That came the week that the Penn State stuff came up, and people thought Matt Rule was going to be a central candidate for that. And so I think there was probably a distraction factor that played into that. And, you know, it finishes out then where you give up 77 combined points between a road game at Penn State and a home game against Iowa. So that's kind of been a theme for this program for a number of years, is fading in November, and that was the case again here. Raiola's injury certainly didn't help. And, you know, I think they're at a place now where this game, like if Nebraska were to have a positive outcome against Utah, they haven't beaten a ranked team in 9 years. They've lost 29 in a row against AP top 25 schools. So this game does matter for Nebraska. It's an exhibition, and ultimately it doesn't, you know, change a ton of the vibe of the season to this point, but it's a major opportunity. What Utah does well are things that Nebraska has not been able to stop. When you look at the quarterback run game and just being physical up front in the trenches. So I think this is a major opportunity for Nebraska to maybe pick up a little bit of momentum heading into portal season and the off season. But I think overall to this point, it's been fairly, I think nondescript would be a good way to describe it. There haven't been any major wins, but they have started to take care of some of these teams that have given them problems in the past as well.
It's an easy central storyline for this game for Utah. Kyle Whittingham's out. Morgan Scalley's in some of these players' last games before they transfer or leave. Is there a central storyline for this game for Nebraska?
It's kind of it's one of those games where you got one foot in 2025 and I think one in 2026, and so the storyline to cap the season would be, I think, atonement. If just from how the regular season ended, like I mentioned with Penn State and Iowa losing big time, like I think this defensive side of the ball especially feels like it left a lot to be desired down the stretch. And so that's an area, especially now with an interim defensive coordinator, where you wonder how much improvement that they can show. And it wasn't all just being physically dominated. A lot of it was missed assignments, maybe not knowing what the call was at different points, being disciplined with your gaps and things. So I think that's important for the defense. But then, for 2026, a lot of people are already looking into the portal, and TJ Lateef is going to get the start at quarterback for Nebraska. This will be his fourth start since Raiola's injury in early November. And he had a brilliant game at UCLA, and then he had a couple of forgettable ones, including one where he pulled a hamstring against Iowa. So this is, I think, an important game for him, for Nebraska, to assess what they have in their freshmen before they go out and seek reinforcements in the portal. So you look at that, and I think there's some other positions too. Emmett Johnson had an All-American season for Nebraska as a running back. He's opting out to go to the NFL, and so it's sort of an audition of sorts at that position as well, where you look at a number of underclassmen that are going to get an opportunity. And so I think a lot of the smaller type stuff comes down to like position battles, guys that are going to have an opportunity against a decent Utah team to show what they can do. And I do think some of what happens today will inform the level of urgency Nebraska has in the portal here in the next week.
Talking Nebraska football with Evan Bland, getting you ready for the Las Vegas Bowl today. You mentioned TJ Lateef and how well he played against UCLA. I went back and watched that game this morning, and yeah, he was terrific. Really a true dual threat, but made some nice throws as well. 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. Is the hope that he can be the guy, or do you think he's going to be replaced regardless?
No, they believe in him. I mean, he was a 4-star kid, highly recruited out of the Los Angeles area in high school, and I think with him right now, it was just a matter of, he was pressed into duty sooner than anybody really expected. I mean, obviously anything can happen now in the transfer era, but the idea was that Dylan Raiola would be around for another year, and that Lateef would have 2 years behind the scenes to develop before he would compete in 2027. And so obviously that changes with the injury and now his departure, where they feel like, I think internally he's beloved among his teammates. That's maybe a little bit of a difference from the Raiola era, where Raiola came in and was a 5-star and kind of a star in his own right. Lateef has been one of the guys, but the way that the quarterback room shakes up, their current number 2 guy is a senior, and their number 3 guy has already announced that he's going to transfer. So Lateef's the only scholarship guy on the roster right now for 26. So they're going to add probably 2 quarterbacks out of the portal at this point anyway. The question is going to be, are they going to open the wallet for an established starter, or are you going to get a couple of maybe younger, high upside guys that can come in and compete? But I do think that they believe that Lateef can be that guy for them for the next couple of years. He has that ability to be mobile, the way that maybe Raiola didn't have these last couple of seasons, and so yeah, I think it's this is an important stretch again for him to show what he can do. But I think Nebraska does feel like he could be the starter for them for the next couple of years.
How did fans view Emmett Johnson, and what type of a loss is he for this bowl game?
Yeah, I mean, Emmett Johnson was the offense for Nebraska for large portions of the season. He was shifty. I think he accounted for around 80% of the running back carries that Nebraska had this year. And there was talk early in the year about workload concerns, but he was a guy who just got stronger as the game went on. He was reliable in pass protection, had some breakaway speed, shiftiness. And so, yeah, I mean, he's going to be a mid-round NFL draft pick in the spring. And it's a big question behind him. They have a true freshman named Isaiah Mosey, who was a 4-star receiver. He converted to running back in the middle of the season. They have another younger guy named Mekhi Nelson, who they like, who's been kind of behind the scenes for a couple of years. And so the message from Nebraska has been they like these guys, but Emmett Johnson was so good that they hadn't had a chance to really show what they can do. Well, now here's their chance. Now's the time to show that these guys have the ability to be feature backs, to be playmakers in the mix for Nebraska into next year. So I think you're probably today going to see – you'll probably see 3 or 4 different running backs take carries. And, I mean, honestly, from what we heard from the coaches, they don't really know how it's going to go. There might be a guy who gets hot. They might continue to rotate just based on effectiveness. So that's another really fascinating spot that is kind of a mystery going into this game, and something that I think Nebraska's hoping for a little bit more clarity for into the offseason too.
Without Raiola or Johnson, is there an identity or a strength that this team has otherwise that they can, rely on going into this game?
In terms of offense, it's kind of a mystery. Like, even with Latif right now, like I mentioned, he had a hamstring pull against Iowa a month ago, and he's, by all accounts, he's 100%, but they haven't really pushed it hard, like in terms of game speed and what you're going to have to do on the field today. So there's a little bit of an unknown. One, if that's going to hold up in game action, and two, sometimes those things are tricky and can relapse again. So I think you're watching him. You're watching the running backs. They do have some playmaking receivers. I think Ja'Cory Barney's a good young, sophomore, kind of a smaller slot type. Isaiah Hunter's been a guy who's been effective taking screens and hitting home runs with those on occasion. So those are probably some of the guys there. I think, like, when I look at this game and say, how's Nebraska going to keep up and score, I kind of look at special teams as maybe that area that they need something to happen. Ja'Cory Barney's one of the better punt returners in the country. He's been close to breaking free a few different times for touchdowns. And then on kickoff returns, they have a guy named Kenneth Williams who earned a scholarship this year just based on his performance back there. He's got the track speed and is somebody that can flip the field pretty quickly there too. So, maybe something comes together offensively. I guess it wouldn't shock me. It's just kind of unproven on that side. But I would expect Nebraska to be very aggressive in trying to return kicks. And, of course, on the other side, trying to block kicks. That's been an area, probably the biggest area of improvement for Nebraska this year is on special teams and what they've been able to do in that phase. So we'll see if that translates into this game and can maybe help them make up a few points as 2 touchdown underdogs.
Why did Matt Rule stay at Nebraska? Why did he not go back to Penn State?
Well, I think you look at some of the national reporting, I don't know that he was necessarily offered the job.
Huh.
Like, that's kind of the first step. I think he was considered, and his relationship with the AD at Penn State, I mean, they're good friends. They work together at Temple, so they, it was a logical fit. But what Matt Rule has maintained pretty consistently through the season is he loves Lincoln. His son, his college-age son, attends Nebraska. His wife had a small business in Lincoln. His girls are in grade school and love it. And I think he's a guy who kind of has reflected and said, I've moved my family all over the country, and now I'm in a position where the community buys into what I'm doing. And you look at his career too. I mean, he hasn't been a head coach in any one place for more than 4 years. And so this is the end of year 3 for him. He hasn't ever had the ability to enjoy the fruits of his labor long term. So I think he does get Nebraska. I think Nebraskans appreciate him and what he's all about. And so it's just kind of a fit. Like he's made a home there, and it's one of those deals where the fans want him to win. He's done everything to ingratiate himself off the field. Now you're just waiting for those wins to come, maybe in greater numbers. You're looking for some more impact victories, and I think today again would be if he was able to pull it off, it'd be his best win at Nebraska to this point. So they extended him for a couple more years, and it looks like a deal where he's probably in this thing for the long haul, and Nebraska's hoping it works out too.
Is Nebraska in a good spot? Does it feel like with Matt Rule they're headed in the right direction, that this is a program on the rise?
Yeah, I think so. Like, all the stuff around the program is in place for them to have success. I mean, they opened a new player development facility about a year ago that's absolutely state-of-the-art. Their nutrition investment is among the best in the country. The fan support, I mean, they've sold out since the early 1960s at home, and fans travel. And so that's, I think, more important now in the NIL era than it's been in the past. And I think the rev share era is going to treat Nebraska better too. Just the pay-for-play NIL stuff the last couple of years was a struggle for Nebraska. I think it kind of goes against a lot of the Midwest values just in general. I think people were kind of uncomfortable with that. But now that the school can do it directly, I expect them to be very competitive for portal players here in the next couple of weeks. Probably the one thing that has held them back seemingly is just their geographic location in terms of Nebraska not being a great recruiting hotbed necessarily for talent. You get some linemen and things, but that's probably the one thing is they have to travel farther away to bring guys in. And generally, if they get them to campus, they feel like they have a chance to have them commit and be part of the team. But I think it's one of those deals too in the Big Ten where your schedule is going to matter every year. Who do you avoid when you avoid half the league? How does that come together every year? But yeah, I think Nebraska feels like it can be a team that's in the college football playoff discussion into November most years. That was the case this year until they played USC and lost a close one. And we'll see how they build it from here. But I do feel like the infrastructure is there for long-term success if they are able to choose wisely on the talent that they bring in.
How do they stack up when it comes to NIL across the Big Ten?
Well, again, that conversation's changed, right, since the rule change last summer. So they're right at the top with everybody in terms of the rev share and what they want to offer there. And they're doing stuff behind the scenes to increase NIL. What a lot of teams are doing, and Nebraska's one of them, is they're redirecting their funds from their multimedia rights partner away from the school and to the individual athletes. So they're essentially, I think they earmarked about $8 million this year away from themselves, and they're telling their sponsors, hey, do individual deals now with our players. So, they're probably, I would say, just based on reporting that I've seen and what I know from Nebraska's situation, they're probably in the top 20 in terms of above the cap NIL at this point. And again, you still have the other things. The academic structure that they have is really impressive, and the facilities. So I think that's kind of how they operate. They're going to operate as a program with top 20 probably resources, and again, their whole thing is getting guys on campus and then letting it sell itself. But oftentimes there are myths they have to overcome. It's not a stadium surrounded by corn or anything like that. It's actually a nice city to live in and a great place to develop as a football player. So I think they'll be competitive moving forward.
Read him in the Omaha World-Herald. Find him on Twitter at Evan Bland, OWH. Evan Bland getting you ready for Utah and Nebraska coming up a little over 2 hours from right now. Evan, enjoy the game, enjoy Las Vegas, and have a Happy New Year.
Thanks for having me. Happy New Year.